It's officially the month of the 2025 NFL Draft. And of course, the closer we get to the draft, the more and more mock drafts that we will see. So in this video, I'm going to react to Lance Zierlein's NFL Network's draft analyst, his 3.0 NFL mock draft, a full first round with trades. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on whether I agree or disagree with some of the placement of the players, the fits for certain teams, the needs for certain teams, and everything in between. If you want to see more mock draft reactions, because there are so many mock drafts, I mean, every person imaginable, every human has a mock draft. So if you want more mock draft reactions on the BLV, Gronk, spike the like button, and don't forget to not be a jabroni and subscribe for more NFL content just like this. Hop in the comments and let me know your thoughts on this mock draft. Let's get to it. Let's waste no more time and react to Lance Zierlein's 3.0 NFL mock draft. I am recording this the day that it was released, so this should be fun. At number 1, Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. I recently released my NFL draft rankings for the quarterback position. I do believe that Cam Ward is the best quarterback in this class, and I do believe he is the one with the translatable tools to turn around the Tennessee Titans. I think there's two skills that stand out for me when it comes to Cam Ward. He has a powerful arm, and he's capable of making elite caliber throws at the second level. He has a powerful arm that can put the ball into tight windows. He's also very, very good in the quick game due to that arm strength, the release, and the arm flexibility and variety of angles that he can bring to that release point. So when it comes to RPOs, screens, quick dump-offs, this guy is going to be elite in the NFL in that category. He's also extremely confident and composed, and I think has the leadership capabilities to really, truly transform the Tennessee Titans. So I agree, this will be the pick. Obviously, he's predicting the picks, not just basing it on his evaluation, but Cam Ward should be the pick, and I think he will be the pick. So at number 1, Cam Ward. At number 2, he's going with Abdul Carter to the Cleveland Browns. I know the Browns need a quarterback, but Andrew Berry is an analytics-driven GM and seems, to me, much more likely to see Carter or Travis Hunter as the pick here than one of the quarterbacks beyond Ward. Now, I would not personally select Shedeur Sanders here, but where the Browns are at, I wouldn't personally go crazy if they did pick a quarterback of their preference at number 2. Most assume it would be Sanders. I would say that with Deshaun Watson's contract, his injury, you do kind of need a quarterback of the future, right, to get you out of this situation. But you have to believe that the guy you'll pick here is going to be that guy. Maybe they believe somebody later could be that guy. Now, when it comes to the conversation between Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, as we'll see, Travis Hunter goes number 3 in his mock draft, I would believe the Browns would lean towards Hunter. And the reason for that is I recently saw a clip from Andrew Berry basically go on a soliloquy about how Travis Hunter is the best two-way player of all time. He's better than Charles Woodson and Champ Bailey. I mean, the guy went on for like 2 minutes about how good Travis Hunter is, how rare of a player he is, etc. So I could see that based on just that conversation alone being the selection. On top of that, how many more resources do you want to put into the defensive line? You just spent $40 million a year on Myles Garrett. I get that Abdul Carter could make it really a dangerous duo up front, but Hunter, I mean, he could be your number 1 receiver instantly, right? And you could instantly have a pretty interesting receiving room between Travis Hunter, Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku, and then even Cedric Tillman, Elijah Moore. Like, you've got enough to work with there for the long term, right? Judy's still kind of in his prime too. So at the same time, you've got a guy like Hunter who you could play a little bit on defense to only capitalize on the already really strong defensive backroom of the Cleveland Browns and play even more man coverage if you so choose, because Cleveland has really dove into that aspect under Jim Schwartz as well. So I feel like Hunter would be the preferable pick from my perspective based on the needs of the team. I think they need a stud playmaker more than they need an edge rusher, but I guess I could be wrong. You guys let me know in the comments. If you were the Browns, what would you do? Would you pick a quarterback? Would you pick Carter? Or would you pick Hunter? Personally, I would lean towards Hunter myself. At number 3, Travis Hunter to the Giants. Now, right here, I think it's basically you're picking the best player. Could the Giants go with the quarterback? Yes, but I think it's less likely given that they've brought in 2 very strong personalities for the short term, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Providing a name like Sanders to that locker room, again, projecting that Sanders would be the number 2 quarterback off the board, although I don't think he should be, just saying. But I will say that he's going to probably be that, right? At number 3, are you going to welcome that circus from a coaching standpoint and a management standpoint where you're on the hot seat? You bring in Travis Hunter, and all of a sudden you have maybe the most entertaining combination of receivers, young players in football, Travis Hunter and Malik Neighbors. Okay, I'm excited. You look at the young core of the Giants, if they had Hunter, Neighbors, Tracy, Theo Johnson, Wan'Dale Robinson, Dexter Lawrence in his prime, all of a sudden we're talking about this roster is pretty good. I already think the Giants roster is kind of a little bit underrated. They really are just missing a franchise quarterback. So Travis Hunter would only, I think, make a strength for the long term with Malik Neighbors, a potential even bigger strength. And at the same time, the Giants, the biggest deficiency on their team last year was corner. They couldn't cover anybody. So he could be their CB2 as well, behind Paulson Adebo, who they signed. So yeah, I think Hunter would be a beautiful pick for the Giants. At number 4, he goes with Will Campbell out of LSU. I'm just going to say this. Now, Will Campbell, from what Mike Vrabel said at the podium, seemed to believe that he strongly thinks that he could perform at a high level at left tackle in the NFL based on what he was able to do in the SEC in college. And I'm not really going to take that and strip that away from Mike Vrabel. Now, what makes me confident about the Patriots nailing this pick if they do go with an offensive lineman is Mike Vrabel actually spent a lot of time with the offensive line of the Cleveland Browns last year, and he was like a part-time assistant coach for that unit. And he's also always been very good with offensive linemen because he is very good with technique from a defensive perspective, so it helps him understand the offensive line technique in protections. And then you couple that with Doug Marrone and his expertise, the new offensive line coach, former head coach of Jacksonville. So I feel very confident that New England would nail that pick regardless. If they want to go Membu, if they want to go Campbell. Membu would be the guy that measurable-wise you would want to pick, but he's more of a right tackle, and they brought in Morgan Moses. So Will Campbell would be the direction that I would sway if I were to predict this pick. I would also say, though, as a Patriots fan, my preferred selection would be obviously Hunter and Carter. Now, if they're gone, I would probably prefer to somehow trade back, but I just don't know if they're going to have a lot of opportunity to do that because I don't know who's getting traded up for, okay, in this case. At number 5, Mason Graham to Jacksonville. This is just the most common and frequent pick, so it feels right to me. Graham doesn't have freakish size, length, or athleticism that others might offer, but he's tough, consistent, and productive, and that's what Jacksonville needs inside. I think he's quick. And when I think about Jacksonville and this new regime, I think of the disruption to be able to pierce an offensive line quickly. You think about Fisk, who they drafted last year in LA, and you also think about Aaron Donald. And they were undersized, right? But they could penetrate. And that's what Mason Graham can do. So I think that is a good fit. The Las Vegas Raiders are at number 6, and they go with a surprising selection, Jalen Walker. I do not see this as being the potential pick here. I think he is wrong about this one. Let's see what he says. Ashton Jeanty is my favorite player in the draft, but this running back class is very deep. Walker is a hybrid edge linebacker with the talent and football character to be a building block for the Raiders. Now, I could see how he would fit within a Patrick Graham system, but if you look at the Raiders roster, where is he playing? Is he playing off-ball linebacker like Dante Hightower-esque? Because remember, Patrick Graham is a Patriot guy. So is he that sledgehammer off-ball linebacker type? Maybe. Is he the edge player? Because probably not. I mean, you got Max Crosby there. You've got Tyree Wilson, who you're still invested in. And you do have Malcolm Kuntz, who's very underrated. So I don't think he would be playing edge right away. So I don't see that as a huge need. I'd prefer a corner at this spot for them, to be honest. And I think the bigger need, if you're not going to go running back, would be wide receiver. So I just don't see how this is possible, in my opinion. I don't see that. At number 7, Membu to the Jets. That's probably my preferred selection as well, over even Warren, the tight end. Let's see what they say. The Jets must run the ball and protect Justin Fields. They could take a shot with Carter Warren? That's not his name. As the starting right. I guess that's a guy on their team. Who's Carter Warren, bro? What? But snagging a talent like Membu to plug in on the right side makes more sense relative to the board. If anyone knows who Carter Warren is, let me know in the chat. I feel like I am lost. But that being said, yeah, Justin Fields likes to hold on the ball. You want to protect him. And if you want to get the most out of Justin Fields, you want to be able to run the ball with Justin Fields. So having a guy like this at right tackle that can really move people, run out in space, and make a difference in that regard too, I think it also makes sense there. So, and you could secure your long-term future at left and right tackle, kind of like what the Chargers did last year in a similar position. At number 8, as I scroll too much, Michael Williams of Georgia, the edge to the Panthers. This would make sense to me. Matching the Panthers with the right selection is tough if the board breaks this way. They clearly need pass rush help, so I'll stick with Williams, my pick for Carolina in the last mock. Yeah, I mean, we don't exactly know who their preferred choice would be at edge. I would tend to say that Michael Williams might not be their type. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, I guess there are some similarities to Jadeveon Clowney with the freakish length and size. But I don't know if he has that burst and that flexibility and the movement to really be a pick for them at that spot. I could be wrong. I think they might go with Jahad Campbell instead, who goes to number 9. You guys let me know what you think of the Panthers pick. Number 9, Jahad Campbell. I don't like this for the Saints. I know that they have 2 good linebackers already. This has been a mocked choice for them, and I don't really understand it. I mean, Demario Davis is still in the NFL, and he's still playing for the Saints, and I get that he's old, but he's still there. And they have Werner, who is pretty good too. And this team is very good at selecting linebackers. Like, they're very good at selecting linebackers. So I don't really feel like this is a needed choice at this spot. I feel like this is a force. I think they need corners more. I think you could use an offensive lineman maybe even more than this because their O-line was so bad last year. I think you could go and push the button for a quarterback if you really want for the long term. I think you could go with an edge player and I'd be more satisfied here. I just don't think linebacker at 9 overall with where the Saints roster is at is necessarily the right pick. I would prefer a more valuable position. Now let's see what they say. Mulling through the Saints options here took some time, but incoming coordinator Brandon Staley is going to need an outside linebacker with top-tier athleticism. Well, Campbell's more of an off-ball inside linebacker, is he not? Who can rush the passer and cover in a 3-4 defense. Campbell is the lone guy remaining who fits that profile. See, I don't know if he's really got that player down right. I could be wrong. At number 10, Ashton Jeanty to the Bears. I like this pick, and I think this would be my pick as well. If you were on the board, I would pick him. I think that having a dynamic talent at running back, when you have such a good roster already established and you have pretty much all your fundamentals down, your offensive line looks good. You've got your wide receiver 1 and your wide receiver 2. You've got a decent enough tight end. You've got your quarterback. You've got a defensive line that you upgraded this offseason, spent money on the edge opposite Montez Sweat. You've got your number 1 corner. You've got your linebacker. You've got your safeties. Like, I feel like running back is that piece that can take a good team to a great team. And by adding Ashton Genty to this roster, it could make them explosive, take pressure off Caleb Williams, and add another long-term weapon. I mean, imagine if Caleb lives up to his billing with Ben Johnson, him and Genty in the same backfield for years to come. That's some like Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith type vibes if you can get it right, if they can nail it. So I would go with that. At number 11, Kelvin Banks to the Niners. I think this is possible. I think going with an offensive lineman is possible. Keep in mind, Kyle Shanahan went to Texas, so I think that Banks, if they like him, I don't know if he'll end up going this high, though, personally, but I do think that it's possible. He could play left tackle, left guard, maybe even right tackle. He's very athletic, so I could see him, suiting the scheme. I think he wouldn't play right tackle. See, this is where I think Lance is very poor at understanding teams' infrastructures. I think he would play left guard. I think Colton McKivitz would play right tackle. I think their current need is left guard more so than right tackle. So yeah, I think he would play guard as a rookie personally, and I think he could for sure. At number 12, I would prefer a defensive lineman for the Niners personally, though. At number 12, Matthew Golden to the Dallas Cowboys. Texas wide receiver to the Texas football team, Dallas Cowboys. There are several positions the Cowboys could target, including defensive tackle, but the position is deep this year. Okay, I think running back, wide receiver, those are probably the two top positions. I think you're right. Offensive line, I think, is probably going to be some place where they go in the mid rounds. I think defensive line could be a place they go in the mid rounds as well. But I think wide receiver or running back is going to be the pick at 12. Because the secondary wise, they only really need a nickel corner, and that's not a first round pick. I mean, I guess they could pick Barron, but I don't know. So yeah, I mean, if they like Golden, he's a fast guy. He would definitely stretch the field. I think he adds a complement to CeeDee Lamb. Although you do maybe worry about his size on the outside, as Lamb's more of a slot player, like preferably a slot player, but he can play both spots, obviously. At number 13, Kenneth Grant, I feel like is a reach at 13, but just one look at the Dolphins roster makes it obvious that defensive line is a must draft. I do agree that defensive line is a must draft. Offensive line is also a must draft for them, though. They need to protect Tua. They've invested so much in Tua. Teron Armstead, not there long term, barely there short term. Interior is suspect, but Zach Sealer's there for the interior D-line. Based on what the Dolphins have done in recent years, based on their team building philosophy, I wouldn't think they would go with a defensive tackle. I think they would prefer to go with an offensive lineman, maybe even a player in the secondary, because their secondary is pretty poor too. So yeah, Miami has holes. Kenneth Grant feels like a one-dimensional player. I wouldn't go with him personally. Number 14, Tyler Warren. This is what everybody's mocking. I think Tyler Warren lasting this long is a gem of a player, a gem of a fit. The Colts don't actually have that many needs. And he actually does say, I would love to go in a different direction with a roster that feels in a truly bold need of a shakeup. Drafting Shedeur Sanders, interesting. But the Colts could use a big target at tight end. If they did draft Shedeur Sanders at 14, that would be pretty fun. I'm not going to lie. And actually, he would be a great fit with Indy. They have very underrated receivers. Their offensive line is very solid. That could protect him and buy him the time necessary. And I think Steichen would be excellent for him. So I think if Sanders were to perform in the NFL, it would be a place like Indy. So I'd consider it. I mean, I would have thrown it in there just for the fun of the mock draft. At number 15, Will Johnson to the Falcons. This makes sense. I think they need pass rush more. The Falcons play a heavy percentage of zone, which is perfect for Johnson, but also I would say is perfect to not draft a corner in the first round. If you're going to play a ton of zone coverage and you need to pick a corner, I just don't understand your philosophy of defense. But that's just me. I think teams that covet corners are the teams that play man a lot. At number 16, the Arizona Cardinals. I would have preferred a pass rusher. Like Mike Green was still on the board. I would have went there. Number 16, Tyler Booker to the Cardinals. I could see this. I think I'm intrigued to see which guard goes first because I think there's been conflicting reports there. I'm not sure if Booker is the greatest fit for the Cardinals because he is more of a power guy. Does he have the movement capabilities for all the different things they do with the pulling linemen and all that sort of stuff? This team pulls linemen more than any team in the league. Arizona's hat-on-hat ground game. I guess, Will Hernandez has been a fit for them. So I guess that could be the case where, hat-on-hat ground game appears to covet force over finesse. Okay. And that should be fine by Booker, who can make the most of his power and size. I'll also say this, team building philosophy. Cardinals did take an offensive lineman in the first round a couple years ago, Paris Johnson, but interior-wise, they've spent very little money. So I wonder if they do go there in the first round. Maybe they would prefer going with the linebacker if Campbell is still there. Maybe they would prefer, so he's obviously gone at this point. Maybe they would prefer going with a corner, because Barron is still there, so that could be a pick that they would go with. Maybe, what else? Receiver would be interesting. Would they go with T-Mac? Throwing that out there too. I mean, that would be pretty fun if you had him and Marvin Harrison, kid from Arizona. Cincinnati, Mike Green. This would be beautiful. Beautiful. He could be a long-term replacement for Trey Hendrickson and instantly produce as a number 2 edge rusher in the NFL. So I think Mike Green's going to be one of my favorite prospects by the end. I haven't truly scouted all the edge rushers yet, but Mike Green is a guy that profiles as one of my favorites for sure. And I think that would be the ideal pick for them. At number 18, Tet McMillan to the Seahawks. Defensive coach. Don't know if I necessarily see this as the pick because they've already put money into Cooper Kupp and they have JSN as a first round pick. And MVS they like, I think. That's one of Kubiak's guys. So I don't necessarily see that as being the pick. I think they'd prefer to go offensive line to protect Sam Darnold, which is more important in my opinion. And I think that they would maybe even prefer to go like corner or something. But at number 18, that I do think he's lasting too long. At number 19, Shamar Stewart to Tampa. I think Tampa needs a more polished edge rusher than Stewart. I'm a little scared about this selection. I don't love that. He's unpolished, elite size, rare athletic ability, and he's able to play standing up or with his hand down. It could be tough for Tampa's general manager, Jason Light, to pass on these type of traits at a major position of need. I don't disagree with the position of need. I don't disagree. I wonder if they would be intrigued by a safety or a corner. But Shamar Stewart, I mean, edge, you can never really go wrong. I'm just not sure if that's the type of player that I would want for them as somebody that likes to root for the Bucs. At number 20, Hampton out of North Carolina to the Broncos. This has been pretty heavily mocked, and I wouldn't disagree with this selection. I do think they need a running back and a guy that can catch the ball, and play on all 3 downs. That would be perfect for their scheme. I think he would be a great fit with Sean Payton. At number 21, trade up for the Rams with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Barron to the Rams. That would make sense. I think, again, they need a corner more than pretty much every other position that they have. I do think Witherspoon is kind of underrated. I do wonder, would they prefer, I think they could go a little bit deeper in the draft and get a linebacker. But yeah, I think that's an ideal pick. That makes a lot of sense. I agree. Number 22, Colston Loveland to the Chargers. This has been heavily mocked. I do wonder if they would still go in this direction, being that they just signed Tyler Conklin. So they have Tyler Conklin and they have Will Dissly. So would they prefer to go with a receiver over a tight end? Would they prefer to go with a corner or an edge or anywhere on defense really other than like linebacker or safety? Would they prefer to go to the defensive side of the ball? Guard even is a possibility. So, yeah, I mean, obviously he has the connection with Harbaugh. Loveland is very athletic, and he could be a move tight end for them. So, very intriguing. They definitely need pass-catching threats. And Greg Roman loves tight ends. At number 23, Revel Jr. out of East Carolina. Have not seen this name too frequently in the first round, but that's interesting. So he is big, long, and fast with the ability to shrink, catch space down the field or step downhill and support against the run. That was a very convoluted sentence. Cornerbacks with size and speed typically get pushed up the draft. Okay, interesting. I'll have to really research him a little bit more, but definitely agree that they need a corner. Number 24, Shedeur Sanders to the Browns. This would be really, really interesting, and I think it would make a lot of sense. If the Browns have their eyes on Sanders, they would be wise to trade from the 33rd pick into the first round so they can secure the 5th-year option that would then come with Sanders' rookie contract. I will say the 5th-year option increasingly has not mattered. I don't know about you guys, but Brock Purdy is about to be signed. He's not even going to get to that 5th-year option. You know what I'm like? I guess he wasn't a first-round pick. That was a poor choice of words, a poor thought. But it feels like just in general, right? If you're a good quarterback, you're getting signed before your 4th year. You're getting signed in your 3rd year. Like, I feel like not a lot of quarterbacks actually make it to the 5th year. Like Daniel Jones maybe did. Like, not a lot of guys that are actually good. But hey, if they want to go with the 5th-year option because of the Deshaun Watson situation, that would make a lot of sense. But again, if Sanders is good, it's Shedeur Sanders. You don't think he's going to want money? I mean, is dad the influence there? I'm just saying. I do think he would be a pretty good fit for Stefanski, though. So at 24, I would not hate that pick at all. I'm not a big Sanders guy. I think that he's very mid as a talent, but I think that his leadership skills, his accuracy, I would buy into that pick later in the 1st round. At number 25, Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. A guard at 25 for the Texans. Now, it does make sense for them to go offensive line. They did add a couple tackles in free agency already. Okay, I get it. At number 26, just feels like a player that I haven't seen too frequently in that range. Number 26, Derek Harmon, I think would be a steal at 26. This is a guy that has great traits, great measurables, and great production. And the Steelers, yeah, they could use a defensive tackle long-term because Cam Hayward's only getting older. He wouldn't probably play too much in his first season, which for a team that's probably going to sign Aaron Rodgers, you probably want a guy that's probably going to really contribute right away. But hey, that would be a steal of a pick. Okay, so we got Amon Worry, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Out of South Carolina, the safety, super athletic guy, could complement Kyle Hamilton. I will say that Washington played really well for them last year. They did just sign a corner, Chidobe Awuzie, so maybe they're not going to look at corner. I would prefer them to go with a pass rusher here, or maybe even an offensive lineman. But safety is cool. I mean, yeah, they don't have a ton of needs, and he's got the range to play free safety opposite Hamilton, so that would be interesting. Josh Conerly Jr. to the Lions. Conerly is projected as a tackle, is he not? Based on recent history, Brad Holmes looks for good athletes from big schools when drafting early, and we know he covets talent in the trenches. Conerly can challenge for a starting role at right guard and then take over at left tackle when 31-year-old Taylor Decker moves on. When is Taylor Decker moving on? I'm not aware of his contract status right now, but I guess that could make sense if it's relatively short term. I have not seen any drop in Decker's play, though, so I wonder if that's too, that's not a pick that I would make. I would prefer to just keep adding to the defense, which feels like it needs a lot of help still. But I mean, if you really like the prospect, I can buy it. At number 29, Trey Amos out of Mississippi, corner to Washington. Dan Quinn likes corners. That makes sense. Natural, smooth-hipped man cover talent would give the Commanders better size to match up on the outside. Well, they did add Marshawn Lattimore, who has pretty decent size. He's physical. But yeah, they could use a corner. They could use really any position on defense, and I'd be down. Like, if they went offense here, I'd lose my mind. At number 30, Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College, another defensive end for the Bills. I think they're far more likely to go in the secondary in the 1st round, corner or safety. That's just my opinion. They need that more. They added Joey Bosa, and they have Greg Rousseau, and they still have AJ Epinesa, and they brought in Mike Hoyt. So I feel like they don't need defensive line as much as they need safety and corner. So it's a good player, though. I can understand the pick. I don't think they need it as much as other positions. 31, Josh Simmons. Okay, that makes sense. Chiefs need offensive line. Simmons falls stops with Kansas City. He has the best length, size, athleticism profile at left tackle in the entire draft, which might be too much for Reed and Veach to pass on. This, though, very much seems like a Chief era, Patriot era, Coney Ely type selection, where it's like, we're going with a guy that should have been a top 10 pick, but he's injured. And then that player never really lives up to the billing, but could be wrong. At number 32, Jackson Dart to the Saints. With teams like the Giants and Raiders sitting in front of the Saints, Saints swap with the Eagles to land their quarterback. Eagles are in a great situation for one of these quarterbacks. I mean, Dart could be there. Also, Shuck could be another guy that sneaks in the first round. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge Jackson Dart guy. Again, I'm not a huge Shador guy. But would this make sense for the team? Absolutely. I just talked about at number 9 how the Saints could pick a quarterback. So at number 32, if they were to trade into the first round, it would make perfect sense. Guys, let me know what you thought of this mock draft. And if you want more reactions, Gronk spike the like button. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.